Hey guys, it's Pastor Anthony here with Daily Excellence. Thank you for taking the opportunity and joining us here on Rumble and on Patreon. And here in just a second, we're going to have Stephen Ben-Nun and his wife Jana from Israeli News Live. They're going to be on here. We're going to get into the discussion of the Noahide laws and what that means and how that's going to be distributed here in these end times that we're approaching and during the time of the Antichrist and things like that. And so we're going to get into those subjects. But as Stephen Ben-Nun would say over on his channel, if you're watching me here on YouTube, you got about 30 seconds and we're going to disappear. So make sure you tune over to Rumble and Patreon channels. It's free to watch that. We're not charging you for it. We just can't discuss this topic over here. We have to be respectful of the community guidelines here on YouTube. So that being said, we're going to go ahead and bring on Stephen Ben-Nun and his wife Jana, and we are so glad that you guys are with us this evening. And thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to hang out with me tonight and have this discussion.
You are very welcome, and it is a pleasure to be on with you, Brother Anthony. And I'm glad that my wife decided to join me with me on this, because she's really, I guess what we could say, and she may not like me saying it, but she is the one that really brought the Noahide laws to the forefront. There are very few people ever speaking about it, and her research that she has done and the videos that we did several years ago starting out on this. It had been brought up before by Nehemiah Gordon one time, but just briefly he just mentions it. But the research and the depth that she studied this in has really helped people to understand what this subject is really all about.
Well, that's good because I don't know a whole lot about the Noahide laws, and I know here on our channel we haven't really discussed them all that much, but it is something that I have looked into, and so I'm going to kind of approach this subject just from a beginner's point of view. So I'm going to lay a little bit of a foundation, and then I hope that you guys can build upon it, and we'll take off from there. So my understanding of the Noahide laws, at least from the very beginning when it came out, was that it was originally a set of 7 commandments that were considered to be binding for mankind. And these 7 involved like not worshiping idols, not cursing God, not to commit murder, not to commit adultery, not to steal, not eat flesh torn from a living animal, or to establish courts of justice. Since then, supposedly, and you can probably clarify this, there's been other laws added. I think there's now 30 from what the small deep dive I did concerning that. And from what I understand, that's the Noahide laws have a bit of a Judaism background. I don't know, maybe you can kind of clarify a little bit about how that came about. We do know that you can also find in the Bible the beginnings of these Noahide laws beginning in Genesis chapter 2. So we'll kind of go with there, just kind of give us an introduction, if you guys wouldn't mind, into the Noahide laws as you both have studied, because we've got the expert with us tonight. And so I know Jana can give us way more teaching than the little, snippet I just gave.
Take it away.
Okay, well, when it comes to Noahide laws, what's important to understand from very beginning is that they are not laws that are in Christian Bible. You don't have 7 laws for Gentiles only in a Christian Bible. And when I say Christian Bible, just the Bible, like we have King James Bible or, Geneva Bible, that you cannot find anything anywhere saying that there are 7 laws for mankind in general or 7 laws just for Gentiles. These particular laws come from the Jewish Talmud. They're mentioned in Jewish Talmud, and it is a Judaic law, more specifically, law for the Gentiles only. So when you speak of this, well, let's go through these laws. The very first law, and when I mention these laws, they're sounding very innocent, and you will see how innocent they sound.
So similar to the Ten Commandments, but and I think one thing we should say, I don't want to interrupt you.
Go ahead.
But one thing, Brother Anthony, I think it's important for the listeners to know as well. Both Jana and myself, we are Jewish by our ancestry. Jana through her father, who was Jewish, non-practicing, and through my family, both my parents were Jewish. So you'll find that the people that really pick up on these things more so than anyone else are Jewish people, like Miko Peled, whose father was an Israeli general who came out and spoke about the things that are going on. Many others that are out there besides him and ourselves there. But so, as Jana is saying, that these laws here are Talmudic, they like to say that they're written in the Bible, but they look similar to the Ten Commandments, but they are in what we call the Law of Kings, is where that's at in the Talmud. It's called the Law of Kings. And so, Jana, I'm going to let Jana pick it back up again. And because
but basically, it's so hard to even start, Brother Anthony, because you just don't know where to, start with this. It's such an important subject these days, considering that Sanhedrin just wrote a letter to President Trump asking him to implement Noahide laws. So they sound very innocent, and you can find them scattered throughout Old Testament, New Testament, go back and forth and stuff. But consecutive 7 laws just for Gentiles, that's not found. This idea is not found in a Christian Bible, and it is definitely out of Talmud. And so first law is no idolatry law. And of course, Christian would say, well, we don't believe in idolatry. So what's wrong with that? So very innocent, right? No blasphemy. We don't believe in blasphemy as Christians. No murder. Well, we don't believe in murder. Like we can't murder, right? No adultery. Very, very common sense. No adultery. No theft. Very good law. No theft. There is one very strange law, okay? No eating flesh from a living animal. So that's kind of probably new for everybody. And the last law, which is considered as a positive law, all these 6 laws are considered negative. And this one is a positive law, is that every nation is to create a justice system to enforce the previous 6 laws. So that's the 7th law, that you must have justice system that forces people to obey the 6 Noahide laws. So those are basic laws, but the problem comes in is not in these laws, but in who has the power of interpretation of these laws. Is it the Christians or who? No, it's the rabbis. It's the Jewish Talmudic rabbis. They are given the power of interpretation. What does it mean not to commit adultery? What does it mean not to commit murder? What do they mean? It defines these things, okay? And they have the power of defining what it means. So the problem comes with sub-laws. And keep in mind that every single law has several sub-laws, okay? And those sub-laws are interpreted by Jewish rabbis.
And according to the Rabbi Tovia Singer, he said that there is 100 sub-laws of the Noahide laws. And you mentioned that who has the power of interpretation, right? Oddly, and this a little side note to think about, Zelensky of Ukraine recently, or not recently, back in 2019, I believe it was, appointed an American rabbi to be the head
2023.
of... No, it's 2019, actually.
For real?
It up. It's 2019, yes. He appointed a Jewish rabbi to be the head of the World Ecumenical Council of Churches over all the churches that are participating inside of Ukraine. And that just seemed like an odd thing, right? I mean, as me and my wife, and she says this quite often, and I agree with her. As far as our Jewish, our friends and our Jewish neighbors, etc. However the Jewish people want to worship the Lord is strictly up to them. Where the problem comes in is when they begin to make those laws and rules incumbent upon Christian believers, whereas Christ came with a new covenant for us, and his new covenant is not 100 sub-laws of the 7 Noahide laws.
And when Steve says 100, keep in mind that in Judaic religion, rabbis always debate each other. So there is a saying that you will have 2 rabbis and 3 opinions in a room. You have 2 rabbis in a room and 3 opinions, because they always kind of debate each other. So one rabbi may say there are 100 sub-laws, another rabbi there are 30 sub-laws, another rabbi may say, well, we don't know how many sub-laws, because signing on to Noahide laws, it's same like signing a blank piece of paper with your signature. And then later they have a power to add on the piece of paper whatever they want. So whatever rabbis feel like, okay, so they will just add in sub-laws as they want, whatever.
Yeah.
So, but let's go with knowledge what is there right now. Now, first, number one problem that we have with Noahide laws is that what is the punishment? In a justice system, what is the punishment if you break any of the Noahide laws? Any of them? The punishment is dying by sword, more specifically, decapitation. And that's in Talmud. It's written in the Talmud. It's stated in the Jewish Encyclopedia. It's stated in Shulchan Aruch. It's in all of their halakha, everywhere. They are all of their writings, all of their books. They're defining the Noahide law. The punishment for breaking them is decapitation. So that's a major problem, right? And let's start with the very first law, no idolatry. Well, according to Jewish rabbis and Judaic interpretation, Christianity is considered idolatry. Now, you might wonder, well, how is it possible? Because now the Jews and Christians are forming bridges. They're calling their religion Judeo-Christianity, right? We call it Judeo-Christian values. How can it be? It's not possible. Well, if you listen to rabbis and you just ask any rabbi, do you consider Christianity idolatry? They will say yes, it's an idolatry. So it is a deception. It's almost like the motto for Mossad, by deception we wage war. Okay? What they mean Judeo-Christian values is that they are teaching Christians that Christianity came out of Judaism. Okay? But when you ask rabbis, is worship of Jesus Christ idolatry? Absolutely yes. Absolutely, yes. They don't consider Jesus Messiah. First of all, they consider him only a man, not to mention how they talk about him and write about him in a Talmud. And worship of man is considered idolatry. So any Christian who ever signs on to Noahide laws, he or she is signing up for a sure death.
Can I make a statement on this here? On the issue of idolatry and Christianity, one thing that's important to note is that if you believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, that's also considered blasphemy. Mm-hmm. Just like when, for example, when Jesus was being tried by the high priest, he asked him the question, "Art thou the Son of God?" All Jesus said was, "Thou sayest." He didn't even say he was. He just said, "Thou sayest." And he ripped his garment. He started screaming, "You have heard his blasphemy for yourself. What more do we have need of to put him, basically put him to death?" And so they sentenced him to death on that alone. Rabbi Mitzrahi, who is an Israeli rabbi, he's out of New York, very well respected among the community. And he has said himself publicly, and many rabbis have said this. He said, he goes, idolatry. He said, the 7 Noahide laws. He said, we have 2 billion Christians. He said, and according to the Torah, which he's talking about the Talmud, because you have to remember, for Jewish people, the Torah is the Talmud as well. Not just what you call the Tanakh, which is the Torah, the Ketuvim, and the Navim, which is the prophets and the writings. It is the Talmud as well. And if people ever look up Nehemiah Gordon is a very well-respected scholar, Hebraic scholar. He is a Karaite Jew. He's not. I have a great deal of respect for Nehemiah. To me, he's a real Jewish man. He used to be Hasidic. I had family members that were Hasidic as well, Orthodox Jews, the ones that wear all the all black. And Nehemiah also has spoken about these things, and he'll tell you that rabbis have the power of interpretation, that even God himself on earth has no authority, only the rabbis. And that is taught in Orthodox Judaism.
Yes, they believe in Judaism, the Torah, which is Talmud teaches that God gave authority on earth to the rabbis, and he cannot interfere with them. So that's what actually they believe. So their interpretation takes precedence over anything else. And so anyway, so just I want to, for the sake of, continuing with the subject, the second law is no blasphemy. And according to Christianity, we agree with this, right? We don't blaspheme God's name or take his name in vain. But what is it, like one particular sub-law in Noahide laws that rabbis came up with under no blasphemy is that if anybody speaks against the rabbis, he's blaspheming. Therefore, he's worthy of death. So under Noahide laws, you will have absolutely no freedom to debate them or to protect your own faith. Because if you go against their interpretation or speak against them anything, you blasphemed against God, which comes in with what we just spoke about. They believe that God gave power on earth to the rabbis, so therefore they are representatives of God. So it's almost like a mega cult. You know how certain cults like Watchtower or Mormons or some cults, they give power to a certain man or group of men. Like in Watchtower, it was Brooklyn, they had this group of 8 men, and they decided everything, and they teach that they are the representatives of God on earth. So it's the same exact thing. So it's basically...
Except they don't put you to death in their religion.
Right, they don't put you to death. They can disfellowship you, excommunicate you, punish you that way. But these Noahide laws, you speak against the rabbi, you're guilty of a second Noahide law. So and it's just one of their sub-laws. The third one, I'll go no murder. And one of the things is the same as under the blasphemy, because they teach that if you, let's say, badmouth someone or speak badly about someone, which includes the rabbis, you murdered them. It's equal to a murder. So you are guilty of murder if you speak against the rabbis, not only if you kill a man. Plus, remember that these laws are only for the Gentiles. And for Jews, they have a separate laws, completely separate, and separate interpretations of their laws. Like, for example, the Jew can kill a Gentile and not be put to death. But the Gentile cannot kill fellow Gentile or a Jew, because he will be immediately put to death. So do you see the...
Yeah, it's a counterbalance.
Yes, there is no balance in it. There is no equality. And I will tell you why there is no equality, what Judaism really believes, because you have to understand Judaism is actually Talmudism. Yeah. So, so that's no murder. The no adultery, well, that's pretty common sense, no adultery. However, there will be very strict laws for the women. And also remember separate laws for Jews, meaning that in a Talmud they can have sexual relations with very young children, like 9 years of age. Pedophilia is allowed. So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, let me, on that one there, Brother Anthony, I want to clarify something for people. And of course, we're not at the house where you can see it right now, but on our bookshelf there, and they can go back and look at some of the former interviews you've done with me before, you can see a set of red books on the lower shelf there. That's the Sensino Talmud. It's 24 volumes. Talmud is not one book. Sometimes people look at Babylonian Talmud or something like that, or Jerusalem Talmud, and they see this one little book on Google and they order and they think they got the Talmud. You don't have the Talmud.
No.
You've got a little highlight in there. These things that Jana just said, they are definitely written in there 100%. I have posted them before. You can do a search online. I speak Hebrew. It does say that in the Hebrew language as well. And they basically put it as if you do, if a rabbi were to defile a child, it's as if you just poke the child in the eye with your finger. That's really, I mean, it's like horrible. So it is, yes, it's really kind of sad. I don't want to.
And under these sexual laws, it comes also, lesbians, and there is all kinds of laws about lesbians and gays and homosexuality. But you need to understand, according to Judaism, if woman sleeps with a woman, she's not guilty. If man sleeps with a man, that's guilt. But woman is allowed to be homosexual. Yeah, it's really weird. It's they have such weird laws that when you read it, when you just start studying what Judaism and Talmudism really is and what they believe. I went on this journey to really look into it. When we went to Israel, I was so dedicated to go back to Judaic roots. So I said, well, I must know Talmud, right? So I started studying it so deeply, and I was horrified. So that's what woke me up, actually,
Yes.
But anyway, so no theft. Let's go to another law. No theft. Very common sense. We don't steal, and we don't steal even a little thing, right? When you are a Christian, you don't steal anything that belongs to others. But look at this inequality. A Jew can steal from a Gentile. It's allowed and completely legal. But the Gentile cannot steal from a Jew or a fellow Gentile.
Right.
Jew gets some penalty, never death penalty, just some penalty, and a penalty is to return the object. Just return the object. Okay, if he steals from a fellow Jew, he's to return the object. That's his penalty, with maybe some interest or whatever. But if Gentile steals anything worth 1 penny, 1 penny, he's already be put to death for 1 penny.
And this is the danger, Brother Anthony, of why when we see politicians or especially rabbis, that are calling for all the different nations to adopt the Noahide laws, and they're saying, we would put an end to all the problems in the world. Well, in a way, what they're saying is kind of true. I mean, you start killing everybody for every little infraction they do, people will be so terrified to even exist. When I was in the Chabad group there, it was weird because most Jewish people don't even know these things. The average everyday, especially secular Jews, they don't know.
Or Jewish women.
Yeah.
Because Jewish women are not taught Talmud. They're not allowed
We've
to study. They're allowed to study certain parts, but not everything.
Jana knows exactly what it's like to sit in a Hasidic synagogue, which is an Orthodox synagogue, where you go in, the women are on one side, the men are on the other side. Even though you're married, that's the way it's done in an Orthodox synagogue. She's been to them many times, so she knows what it's like, right? Because when we were first married, we would go to synagogue.
No, we would go there too, we would go to
but
church.
to visit, right? Because
We
I
went to
was still a
visit.
believer, but we were trying to do. We felt strongly in the beginning to support Israel wholeheartedly.
But
You know,
we went to break roots, brother. You know,
yeah.
embrace our roots, and uh,
So we did it with a very sincere desire and a
yes,
sincere motive to really to help Christians to better support Israel. It was little things, you know, even for myself before I met my wife. You know, when I lived in Israel back in 2004 and 2005 and 2006, I had a roommate that was Israeli, and he would talk about target practicing on Palestinians. It was things like that that I would be like, what? And I didn't know if I really believed him. I
Yeah.
thought it was more like a joke because he acted like it was a joke, but he was actually serious.
Mhm.
And it was things like that that began to make you think, and that stayed in the back of my mind. So when Jana began to really discover these things and bring these things out and start coming to me and saying, Steve, my gosh, what about this and what about that? You know, and I'm like, I never read that. I didn't
Yeah, I
know
would
that.
come to my husband with all kinds of questions because I was really into studying Judaism, really embracing, you know, going back to Hebraic roots. And as I was studying, and it was very confusing, very inhumane, and especially toward Gentiles, and very weird laws. I mean, your brain just stops. What I'm saying here is just nothing. I mean, if you really went deeply,
You're not even touching the
and yes,
surface.
you barely touching it. And I would give Steve all these, you know, I would bombard him with it. Please explain to me. I mean, this doesn't make sense. It's just so weird and so awful. And so this kind of started opening our eyes. And then when, of course, we lived there and we started seeing how Palestinians are treated. Like, I am in Israel thinking it's the only democracy in the Middle East. I was so proud of that sentence. We are the only democracy in the Middle East. And then you arrive there, you are among the people, and then you start noticing things. It actually is an apartheid state. And, you know, you just don't know what to think about it. So, anyway, but we are going really away from Noahide laws, and I'm sorry. But let's go to the sixth Noahide law, which says do not eat meat from a living animal. So that one seems to be pretty straightforward. I don't think there is anything there hidden other than you know, they're protecting animals, and they're going to put on sub laws all kinds of animal rights. And but just to keep in mind that hunting will be prohibited, hybridization will be prohibited. Um, I don't know how to, maybe, like, you know how people have these breeders of cats and dogs, and you know that's this is going to be prohibited. Mixing breeds will be prohibited. Hunting will be prohibited. These type of things. I mean, there will be all kinds of weird sub laws there. And the last one, establish courts of justice to enforce the six laws. And they're asking for every town, every village will have to have its own Noahide courts with the headquarters in Jerusalem, Sanhedrin, Jerusalem. So what Sanhedrin does now, and it's pretty much, you know, they did write some articles in early 2000s to let us know that they are preparing Noahide judges. But since people started to find it out, they're keeping it secret. But what they're doing, a lot of Catholic churches sending out a lot of bishops and young priests to Israel. And they're being trained as Noahide judges. And they're sending all representatives or official denominations are sending out their representatives to be taught by Sanhedrin to be prepared as Noahide judges. And they're teaching them, you know. And so don't be surprised if one day we have some sort of huge event happen There will be chaos. There will be no constitution. It's going to be all called off, and they will come with a new system, religious system. One world religion is Noahidism for Gentiles. That's exactly what it is.
There is a good friend of ours, Elizabeth Glass.
Yeah.
And Elizabeth was
she's a Jewish lady.
Yeah, she ran for the Senate in New York. She almost won, and she was backed by Bobby Kennedy Jr. A lot of very well-known politicians backed her. She woke up to the Noahide laws after listening to one of Jana's messages. A friend of hers, another Jewish lady, had told her, she says, I'm telling you, you have no idea what's coming. It's really bad, right? So at first she thought it was all crazy.
Yeah, and remember, she's Jewish.
Right, so yeah.
She was bat mitzvah. For men, they have bar mitzvah. For women, for girls, they have bat mitzvah. So she's like this Jewish woman who has absolutely no clue and no idea that 7 Noahide laws exist, that they're going to be as a future for a new world religion. And then she learns it, and she's completely shocked. And now she's, of course, spreading the message how she disagrees with all of this as a Jew. Well, so this is when we come to subject that not all Jews are bad people.
Right. No, they're not. They just don't, they're not aware of what's really going on. And what's interesting was Elizabeth heard that the Catholic Church in her area there in New York was hosting classes on Noahide laws. Yeah. So she decided to go see what's it all about. And she gets in there, and the priest that is teaching on the Noahide laws, he gets on the subject of adultery. And he said, and we're going to, under the Noahide laws, we will reinstitute capital punishment for adultery. And she says, she asked the question, she says, are you serious? You're going to, capital punishment? Like, death penalty? He said, absolutely.
Yeah, but she asked, is it only for women? Now, she asked a very good question, because there is going to be completely different laws for, sub-laws for male and female. In all the adultery laws.
Just like Jesus dealt with. Where was the guy when they were brought out? She was brought out for the adultery, but where was the guy? Mm-hmm. Moses said they stoned them both, but they didn't bring the guy. They only brought the girl.
In sub-laws, you will find things like clothing. There will be prescribed clothing for females, and all like no pants, for example, and stuff like this. So it's like living under religious laws or a theocratic nation, where you have a religious nation, like you have an Islamic nation, and we are now against it as Americans. We see it as complete violation of freedom and democracy and what it means to have a free nation, but yet nobody is noticing that we are walking into a complete trap with this Noahidism. So it is extremely dangerous, and of course for Christians too. But what they are working on now, Anthony, is that they are coming together, the Islam, Abrahamic religion, this Abrahamic accord, they're all coming together, Islam, Christianity, and rabbis. But rabbis are the ones who are interpreting how Islam and Christianity is going to be interpreted. So they are working on the fact that you will be able to keep your title as I want to be called Christian. You can call yourself Christian, but you're going to have certain changes within Christianity you're going to have to embrace. It will be like a state imposed Christianity. But this is why I am very leery about Trump bringing Bible back to school, because they're trying to get all of these Noahide laws implemented through education system for the new generations. Maybe somehow
if it was just the Bible itself, we would be for it. But we're concerned because the thing is, there's already this push to rewrite the Christian Bible.
Right.
They said that Jesus was anti-Semitic, and they want to remove all the anti-Semitic verses out of the Bible that Jesus spoke, like where Jesus says, "You are of your father the devil."
Yes.
You serpents, you vipers. You know,
Yes.
John calls them the same thing. All this has to be removed from the New Testament, and that's what they want to present back to the people.
They want to do changes to New Testament, to what they call anti-Semitic passages. And so right now, as we stand, I would say I am to get up in the morning and am I worried about Noahide laws? No, I'm not really worried tomorrow morning. You know what I mean? I know that we still have our secular laws and we are safe that way. We have freedom of religion. We can practice our faith the way we want to. We can defend our faith still, and I consider it a tremendous privilege. But what I am seeing that they are doing, how they are preparing the background, so they can one day everything is going to change and suddenly Noahide system will be upon us. Why? Because we are actually not, we are walking into a trap. We are like these frogs slowly boiling in a water until we are completely cooked. You see, and it comes in with things like Trump bringing in faith. What is that he brought in with Paula White into White House? Are you aware of it, Anthony?
I don't remember what it actually was that they brought
He
in.
created a faith something.
Interfaith. It was an interfaith. I forgot what it was.
No, it just happened. He just created a faith office, and Paula White, the Florida pastor, female pastor, Paula White is ahead of it. Yes, and Paula White goes to Israel, and she is taught by the rabbis, the Torah. She's studying Torah and the rabbis, and she said that Jews don't have to be Christians to be saved, but every Christian has to learn Judaism to be saved. And
Wow.
she also said we are not to preach Jesus to Jews. Basically, they have this dual covenant theology where Jews are saved as they are. They have Jehovah. They are saved because they're chosen. They don't need Jesus, and we don't need to preach Jesus to them. And we are like separate. We're the church. We need, we have Jesus. So they're teaching these theologies, that we are not to preach Jesus to Jews, which is completely against everything that apostles did in the New Testament. Because we know that even Apostle Paul, he was apostle to Gentiles, but we know that he went to synagogues and he did preach to Jews. And he tried to reason with them.
Yeah.
I mean, there are scriptures where he says that he tried to reason with the Jews and preach gospel to the Jews, right? Doesn't it say to the Jews first and then to the Gentiles, right? So
all the fundamental beliefs that we have of Christianity will go by the wayside.
Yes. So where is the danger? It's not just Jews speaking or within their religion saying that one day there will be Noahide laws when Messiah comes. What's happening here, there is a Chabad organization that is a head of a snake here, basically. Chabad has come to every Judaic denomination, and they kind of took over the whole Judaic faith. So Chabad is the organization who is in the forefront of spreading Noahide laws and putting it into politics. It was Carter. It was already President Carter that signed in Noahide laws into a public law 10214. And every president since Carter
has signed
on it every single year. They have re-signed it every single year. And it is practiced through education system, not like officially practiced, but it's there on the books in schools. It is an education system as a public law 10214. It's kind of like they're doing it very sneaky way. It's like having one leg in already, you know what I mean? And every year as it's signed, it's now in all 50 states, by the way. the president, it's signed on a birthday of Rabbi Schneerson, who headed Chabad organization. Okay, he's now deceased, but he's still considered Messiah that will come and reappear and be resurrected. So they still worship him as a future Messiah. So every year, President of United States re-signs the Noahide laws in the presence of 10 Chabad Jews. And you can Google it, click on images, and you will see every single president. Doesn't matter if it's Republican or Democrat. It doesn't matter. It's almost like left wing, right wing, same destination. You know what I mean? So that's how it works. But yes, and Sanhedrin just wrote a letter to Trump just a few weeks ago. You can Google that too. It will come up, asking Trump to implement Noahide laws in the United States and all over the world. And they're slowly kind of moving toward it. Catholic Church has signed onto Noahide laws. They signed agreement in Israel, in Jerusalem. And there is signatories are rabbis. There is several rabbis and several bishops. They signed on to Noahide laws. United Nations signed onto Noahide laws as well. And of course, the Public Law 10214 declares that United States of America was built upon Noahide laws. Now, you went to school in America. I didn't. I'm not originally American. I'm naturalized. Of course, I'm married here, you know, but I have never met one American person that knows that their nations were supposedly based on Noahide laws. Nobody was ever taught
10 Commandments.
You know,
that's what all people believe.
This is what's on the books, and this is what's in a Public Law 10214. So everything is getting ready when they're going to teach children completely new things. They're going to start teaching them in schools. They implemented Minute of Silence, which is what Chabad organization or Schneerson was saying. And now Minute of Silence is becoming a law in public schools. And it seems so innocent, just like Noahide laws, but what's behind it, that they want to take this minute, just like Schneerson, taught, to reflect upon being a better person, reflect upon being a good Noahide, basically.
Rabbi Schneerson taught that the way to be able to take control of society is through education. Mm-hmm. And so this is the reason why the Chabad organization has targeted education from the very beginning. And that's exactly what they're doing. And slowly but surely, they have managed to pull this off. And unless Christians wake up to what's going on, this is what, as Jana said, one day we're just going to wake up to it.
Noahide laws are basically Judaism for Gentiles. With interpretations and being led by the rabbinic system. It is the same situation as Jesus was in. And remember when Jesus says, they hated me, they will also hate you, or they will hate you also. And who are they?
If they persecuted me, they will persecute you too.
Right. So who are they? Who are they?
Pharisees.
The Pharisees. It's the Pharisees.
Well, let me clarify on that one.
It's the same situation we are going to, and we will have the same persecution that Jesus had by the same entities, Pharisees.
And to clarify on that, Brother Anthony, about Pharisees, if you, Tovia Singer, or even Nehemiah Gordon, they will tell you, you cannot be an Orthodox rabbi unless you can prove in your lineage that your family goes back to the Pharisees of 2,000 years ago. And now how do you pull that off is beyond me, because I don't know how you could prove that.
They claim that they have documents, and then they kept them up.
Yeah.
and
Di-
we can trace
right.
their lineage.
David Cohen, which you guys wouldn't know who he is anyway, but he's my cousin. He's from an Orthodox family, and we're cousins, and we're distant cousins, but we're still, we are cousins. And his family goes back to the priesthood as well, and our fathers are related, is what it is. So we're cousins through our fathers. But I've always heard that that the Orthodox community are all from the Pharisaic bloodline. Now, it doesn't make every Pharisee bad, because we know that Nicodemus come to Jesus by night. He knew that he was a master, a teacher sent from God. But the thing is what Jesus also was warning us about is that they come after him, and sadly, there is one way for any Pharisee, any Orthodox Jew to get saved. Just like my cousin, my cousin actually ended up believing Jesus Christ just from watching my videos, and and that's the only way. I mean, it truly is through Jesus Christ. It's the only hope for the Jewish people. And I always say to people, look, you want to do something for the Jewish people, you want to support Israel, share the gospel with them. That's the greatest thing you could ever do for Jewish people. Yeah. Because when you don't share the gospel with them, you're doing just the opposite of what you were sent to do in this world in the first place. And it doesn't matter if you're a mom, a dad, a school teacher or not. Anyone can share the gospel. You may not be called to be a preacher, but you can always be a witness to the love of Jesus Christ. He was the one, when it speaks about the law will go out of Jerusalem, like Isaiah said, it was the word of God was Jesus Christ. That was the
And
word.
he was in Jerusalem. So his law, which is law of love, right? He has two loves: love your God and love your neighbors yourself. That was the law, that was the voice out of Jerusalem, because that's where he was. And what I want to say about the Jews is that it is not all Jews, of course, but they are the victims of their own rabbis and their own Judaic Talmudic religion.
Yeah, pretty much like any cult. That's true.
Right. So this is why it's imperative that we preach Jesus to individual Jewish people, because they're lost. And we need to take them out of that Judaic system from underneath of the rabbis and put them underneath of the rabbi, which is Jesus. Right. So the Jews are, the everyday Jews are basically taught, they're brainwashed, that they are like, it's like a club. It's that feeling of, we are a club, we are the Jews, and the Chabad rabbis are now taking all of these Jews under their wing and brainwashing them. Okay, we are the divine people, we are the better people, we are the chosen people, we are to lead the Gentiles, we are better than Gentiles. And unfortunately, Chabad has another book, sacred book, called Tanya, and they go by that book, and that book teaches that Gentiles are slaves to the Jews. So first they brainwash them that we are the chosen, the Jews are the chosen. We have to implement Noahide laws on the Gentiles by force. We have to lead them by fear. And they are meant to be our slaves. And now they're using some verses from the Old Testament, and they interpret them in such a way. In Old Testament, can you think of those verses where it says that all the riches of the nations are going to be given you?
I'd have to go back.
Okay, there's certain Old Testament verses, and they're kind of usurping those verses and misinterpreting them to the Jewish people, to teach them that Gentiles and the riches of Gentiles are going to be given to them.
I'll give you a good example, brother Anthony, and this will be really good for the people that are listening, that would help too, because I just listened the other day. Someone sent me a video of the president of the Worldwide Church of God, and he was speaking about Gaza, and he really felt like that Trump is fulfilling prophecy and wanting to relocate the people of Gaza out of the area and then rebuild it. he says, so that Judah can occupy that land. And he quotes it from Zephaniah chapter 2, verse 4. But as I saw that, I came back, and I've dealt with this before, but I thought, okay, it's really a good idea to deal with it again. And I didn't, I appreciate that the guy didn't support the genocide of the people, but he felt like, though, that it is a godly thing in this day. And I said, well, for one, let's clarify. Zephaniah chapter 2, verse 4 says, Gaza, Ashkelon, Ashdod, and Akron would all be destroyed. And it's actually not even Gaza. Gaza is pushed back. Ashkelon is the one that's destroyed. Well, Ashkelon is an Israeli city right now. And no, the only place that got totally wiped out and decimated was Gaza. So, and then it also clarifies that the war would come out of the north upon Ashkelon, and that Gaza would also get whacked pretty hard as well. And biblically, when did this happen? When were the Philistines destroyed? They were destroyed by Nebuchadnezzar II in 602 BCE. It was prophesied 30 years before it happened by Zephaniah the prophet, and then Nebuchadnezzar came and destroyed it. And not only do we have the Babylonian records to support it, we have the biblical record. Not only do we have the biblical records and the Babylonian records, we have the archaeological proof that it was totally laid waste, burnt so bad that even a lot of the works that were there were melted to the ground, and there was no more. Now, when did the house of Judah come back? When Cyrus gave the decree for them to come back to their homeland, sure enough, here comes the house of Judah. They come back to their homeland, and oddly enough, we have some of Judah goes down to Gaza. How do we know this for sure, though? Very interesting little story that a lot of people forget about Philip. Where was Philip when he met the Ethiopian eunuch? Down at Gaza. That's where he met him. He was on his way to Gaza, and he went down there. Well, if that had been a Philistine stronghold, Philip would have got his head chopped off by the Philistine giants and would have got drug in there and eaten by all of them, the way we'd probably think today, right? And no doubt the Philistines were some very evil people, but they were totally crushed by the Babylonian Empire. And then, so what happened, though, it was truly inhabited by the farmers of the Jewish people. And then you have Zvi Misanai. He is an Israeli man, full diehard in the old Jewish guy. He said they did the DNA test on the Palestinians and confirmed what the first prime minister of Israel said, Ben-Gurion. 90% of the DNA matched that of the Jewish people that had come back to the land.
They're the original.
So he says, Sevi says, and this is in the Jerusalem Post. You can look up the article on it. It's also in Shvi Yisrael, which is Michael Froon. I know Michael Froon very well. And he writes about this, and he says, why are we fighting against the Palestinians? He said, these are our blood brothers, and all we're doing is killing them. Mm-hmm. They were forced into the Muslim religion.
Yes, it's
except now many of them are Christians, because I know many Palestinians.
I mean, if you want to do true genealogy, not by faith, like as far as religion of Islam, they were a lot of them just converted
under the Ottoman Empire.
Yeah, the Ottoman Empire converted to Islam, but as far as the physical genealogy, they're the original people from Israel there. So
their DNA matches the Sephardic Judaism that we have.
And plus, we are not to do war. We are to preach the gospel. We are to give good tidings and preach good tidings and love and spread love and win them over to Christ, not kill them with modern AI weaponry, that Israel is producing against them. So that's a whole another subject, and I know that, but it's good we talk about Gaza a little bit, because it is what they do, their excuse to do to Gaza and Palestinians, what they're doing is exactly Noahide laws, because they are allowed to take from the Gentiles. Anything Gentiles own by the Talmudic laws belongs to them by their divine right. They teach that they have a divine DNA, and then Gentiles have animal DNA. So these are the real true teachings of Talmud. and Judaism and Judaic rabbis. That's why making bridges with them makes completely no sense at all. Because we are two faiths that are completely not compatible in any way. And when you had a question in the beginning, maybe before we started this broadcast, to define the true Judaism, true Jews. I want people to go and research Karaite Jews. You have to understand that when you see a Jewish person in front of you, most 99% of Christians are not educated to understand who they are looking at. They are looking at a Jewish man or a woman whose religion is not our Old Testament. Because we are taught that when you see a Jew, oh, they're all about Old Testament. They just are blinded to Jesus, and one day they're going to know Jesus. And that's completely not true. When you see a Jewish person today, most likely you are seeing a person who is studying Talmud in yeshiva every day, not the Old Testament. Their sacred book is the Talmud. They're using the Old Testament and they're interpreting in such a twisted way. And then they are writing it they rewrote it into the Talmud, which is their oral law originally, and 500 years after Jesus Christ, they put it in writing. And they kept putting it in volumes, and now it's all finished. It's several volumes of books. Okay, it's very complicated. It's a huge body of writings, and extremely evil. So when we say Judeo-Christian values, I don't even say that anymore. I don't have Judeo-Christian values. I have Christ values. I have Christian values. Because when you say Judeo, you are implementing into that word Talmudic beliefs. So be very careful when you are describing yourself as a Judeo-Christian. It's a trick. It's a trap. But please research Karaite Judaism, Karaite Jews. This is the denomination of Judaism that refuses Talmud, and they are the only ones who go by the Old Testament alone. And that's when Nehemiah Gordon, you can actually Google him, research him. He is a Karaite Jew, and he only teaches from the Old Testament. And this is the example of a man that I would say is blind to the fact that Christ is the Messiah, but he means really well.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Easier for them
So,
to
yeah, so this is, I think it's all about education. I think that Christians in this country need education because they have been deceived and not, I believe that most Christians in this country are very honest people, and they honestly want to please God. And I just really believe that if they had this knowledge, things could go different way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I, just by listening to both of you tonight, there's certain things that actually make quite a bit of sense with where we're going. I did like that you brought up the relation between Israel and Gaza. Because that reminds me of the Old Testament, where in the Christian Bible, of course, Jacob and Esau, they parted ways. They were both under the house of Abraham, both Hebrew, both Jewish. Well, one went one direction, one went the other direction. But we know that today that's actually both Israel and Palestine. And so when you do follow the bloodline, it does merge back together at the very beginning. They are brothers and sisters of each other. And so when you look into that, so I'm glad you brought that up. And as we were kind of going through these Noahide laws, and about how the rabbis will be interpreting those laws and how they're unbalanced and not fair. It really makes sense to me with the direction things are going and how they're trying to implement these things through the education system, through the political system, through the United Nations and things like that. Because as the last interview that we did last week with me and Stephen, I left off with, hey, what they're doing in Gaza and what they're doing in Israel, this city that they're building is going to be the new, in my personal opinion, is going to be the new economic mecca of the world. Okay, it's in my personal belief that the United Nations will move out of the United States and be placed in Gaza. Okay, that's just me. Or somewhere in that area. They're going to do this thing. I've been talking about it for years. And it makes sense because as the Antichrist comes on board, he's going to try to mimic Jesus Christ. Okay, he's not going to make Jerusalem that capital, but he's going to make it somewhere close to there. And they're going to implement these new laws. Now, it's going to look like conservatism at the beginning, but it's not. Just as I think it's in the Sanhedrin, one of the Sanhedrin books of Judaism, I may be getting that mixed up, but as you had alluded to earlier, it does say that you will be decapitated if you don't follow these laws or if you're found guilty of whatever it is. So those who are trying to be Christians during this time, during the 7-year tribulation, and they get caught practicing Christianity, well, what's going to happen? Under the Noahide law, they're going to be decapitated. Well, where do we find that in Christianity? In our Bible, the book of Revelation tells you that. The book of prophecies tells you that there's going to be a guillotine. That tells you that that they're going to cut your head off for being a follower of Jesus Christ. So if you're found not doing these things, and then as you guys were talking, this was kind of coming to me a little bit. When you sign on for the mark of the beast, then that may put you in a different area of the Noahide laws, the more, I guess you could say, fair part of it, so to speak. And if you don't have it, you're on the unfair part of it, it makes sense to me that, they would try to implement these things because, as you alluded to earlier, one day you're going to wake up and the system's going to be different. And it's going to be different in religion. It's going to be different in monetary. It's going to be different in world politics. We're going to wake up one day and it's going to change. And I think, and as I told Stephen Ben-Nun last week, I think, with these deals that are being worked out, because they are trying to get this third temple built. I mean, like, as they're negotiating this, the third temple is in the negotiations. I know in my spirit it is. I haven't seen the plans. I just know in my spirit it is. So when this thing starts manifesting, the person who's going to be implementing the Noahide laws, which I personally believe, in my opinion, it is the Antichrist himself. I believe he's walking among us in physical form. He's here. That thing is that his identity is going to begin to be revealed during these talks that are coming up in the next couple of years. It's going to take a couple of years for them to do this, but don't be surprised if things start changing within these next 4 years. I don't personally think Trump is the Antichrist at all, but I do think, in my personal opinion, that the Antichrist will come out of the house of Israel or the Catholic Church, one of the two. It's kind of 50-50 on my end. And of course, the Pope is sick. I did a thing last night about that. It ain't looking too good for him right now. Who comes in charge after that? Is that person going to go full force into the Noahide laws? But yeah, it's really, it's kind of a mess. Anything else you want to add in on to that little tidbit I just did there?
Brother Anthony, I'll say this here. This is the fight, the battle that we began early on, that Jana really spearheaded. We did a lot of our chats together going through this subject here. And then we went silent for a number of years, and
not totally, but
yeah, but I felt personally, when our family got attacked, and I won't go into that directly, but I personally felt like it had something to do with the fact that we were trying to expose this. And then, of course, my father-in-law lost his life in the process of that. But the one thing that always stuck in my mind was, without going into a lot of detail or anything like that, but the 21st degree Mason in the Mason belief is called a Noahide Mason.
Noahide execution.
And what That's what his job is. He's the executioner for those that violate the Noahide laws. And my father-in-law died from 21 mils of peroxide. And I'll just leave it at that.
But my message is to Christians that listen to you is, please look into the Noahide laws, what they are, and the behavior of today's conservative politics.
Yeah.
The faith office that President Trump gave to Paula White. Study about what Paula White believes and where she's going. Kind of look after her a little bit, because she's officially studying with rabbis in Israel. She's been taught in Noahide theology.
It's becoming a prerequisite. It seems to be. Anyone that is getting more involved in the higher echelon of the religious part of politics has to go under the Noahide laws. And I don't know if you know this or not, Brother Anthony, but we actually covered this live right from Israel years ago when the Vatican was having a very close-knit movement with Israel. And we discovered that Pope Francis had actually, before he became Pope, he was sending over his head bishops to Israel to study the Noahide laws before he became the pontiff. So some really strange things have happened over time. And then, of course, we saw, oh gosh, I forget his name now.
Well, think of his name. I want to just say about President Trump a little bit more. Look at his Kabbalah award. Okay, he's a Kabbalah Tree Award. And his son-in-law is a Chabad Jew. And his daughter has converted to specifically Chabad Judaism. And as I said, learn about Chabad. It's a mega cult. It is head of a snake in Judaism. Their sacred book is not only Talmud, but Tanya, which is kind of like a set of laws that they follow, where they specifically teach that Gentiles are having animal DNA and they have divine DNA. And you can, as a Gentile, you can never reach their status, no matter what. The best you can ever be is a good Noahide. So, and President Trump is directly involved with Chabad organization and gives them donations. Anything Israel is also, by the way, that Bibi Netanyahu is a Chabad Jew, and he is involved with Chabad Judaism. Please read my article on IsraeliNewsLive.org. I have specifically year before last, 2023, I wrote about what's going on in Israel, what is the right-wing coalition there, and how dangerous that coalition is. They're creating a religious Talmudic theocracy in Israel. And
that's why the Israelis came out against it. That's what's important to note, too. There's a lot of good Jewish people out there. A lot of good Jewish
They're
people.
victims.
That's right. And they recognized when they saw that theocracy coming. That's why there were so many Jewish people protesting. And a lot of people looked at that like, oh, they're just secular Jews and stuff. But no, they just didn't want to be. You have to understand.
They don't want to be under rabbis.
Israel is it's very hard to live there. And I mean, I know this firsthand because I was in the Orthodox community, right? So I know how it works. Even if you're secular, in order, like if a woman is being abused, beaten by her husband or really abused badly, and she wants to get a divorce because she can't take it any longer, she can't just go get a divorce. It's not like in America.
No, you have to get a get. The marriage and divorce law, this is what
it goes before the rabbis, and the rabbis determine whether or not he can continue to beat you and you have to stay with him, or whether or not they might grant you. And most of the time they side with the husband.
Well, the American Christians think of Israel as democracy. It's not. It's not democracy. It's a complete lie.
And abortion. The most liberal abortion laws in the world.
Up
is
till
in
9
Israel.
months is all allowed.
And it used to never be that way, but they passed it. They passed, and I actually did a video on it years ago showing the laws and the very debates that were going on. And
But
yeah,
they are against mixing Jews and non-Jews. So in Israel, if any Jewish man falls in love with Gentile woman, he cannot legally marry her.
We had a friend of ours.
Their marriage is not considered.
They threw his wife out of the country.
Yes. So, and American Christians have no idea about these types of things. That's why I'm saying.
And he would not let us go public for him to help him fight it. He fought for 3 years. He finally got his wife back.
Yes.
But they threatened him everything. Oh my gosh, it's horrible, the things that poor brother went through.
They're on the Judaic laws and the Talmudic laws more specifically, and Gentiles are not welcome. They're not welcome. So, it is very deep subject, complicated. We only touched the tip of the iceberg today, really, Brother Anthony.
Get off the Titanic.
Yes, and I know we're kind of all over the place. That's how Steve is, by the way. You know, I try to stay on.
He can be focused, not me,
but he's like all over, and then I have a hard time to come back to subject, but because there is so much to say about so many things, and I know that there is a missing basic education and knowledge about what Judaism really is. It's Talmudism. It's not Old Testament, and that's what we have to realize as Christians. You know,
we're way over time, though.
Yes, we don't want to keep.
Oh no, you're fine. Yeah, I've personally appreciated you guys coming on tonight and explaining this stuff. It makes a lot of sense to me, really. There's especially as I've read Old Testament and I see the things that are coming, and there's been little pieces here and there that make a little bit of that make a little bit more sense about the Noahide laws and where it comes from. Because even just knowing it, but not knowing where it exactly came from or how it came to be, and that's kind of where I was at. Because when I looked at that and I was like, Judaism, like, I didn't quite make the connection of any of those things. And so I personally appreciate you guys taking that time and just kind of explaining the basics of that and where it comes from. And it definitely has opened my eyes to a few things. My mind was kind of just like racing for a little while you guys were talking. So, and you guys say this is just the tip of the iceberg. So it sounds like to me, we were probably going to have to come and do this again. So just to kind of dive into it and maybe just as we move forward into these times, because we are, how do I say this? I think you guys put it best when you were talking about it doesn't matter if it's Democrat or Republican or what party, it's all going to the same place. And that's what I've been telling everybody for almost the last year. I've told people that no matter who's in office, whether it was Biden or Trump, it may be different roads, but it's all going to the same destination. And that's exactly what's happening. And I think people are starting to see that, and of course, we're not allowed to, favor any, particular party or anything like that. Although I think, you probably figure out by the reading between the lines. But it's, how do I put this? Things for the United States, in my personal opinion, I think Trump is good for the U.S., for the USA if he was just to stay in the USA. But I'm seeing things on the outside of it that has definitely put a check in my spirit. And I'm like, man, sometimes you kind of wish you didn't see these things. And I'm like, but you do. And you're like, and you can't ignore it. And so I'm finding myself like, okay, I probably need to sit back and be quiet for a little while because there's some things that I'm seeing that I'm like, I don't know about this. It looks really good, but I got this feeling it's not. And that's kind of where I'm at with this. And so, talking about the Noahide laws and talking about how Trump is involved in that, which makes sense because Ivanka, his daughter, that's who you were alluding to earlier, is married to what's his name? Kushner, Jared Kushner. Yes. And he has that background, which we all knew, that was put out publicly, that he is of that particular faith in Israel. And so I have a feeling that a lot of what Trump is doing has a lot to do with his son-in-law and propelling that going forward.
Yes, do a research on what son-in-law wanted in Gaza, for example, and now compare that what Trump is proposing for Gaza. So it's Kushner that wants real estate. He's the real estate person. So it's almost like Trump is used to hand the Chabad anything they want. Right. And this is what I don't like that they're doing. It's almost like they're controlling him. So I would like to keep Trump for ourselves here in USA, yes, and build up our country. But it seems like he's used for a completely different purpose. And we're going to get the crumbs, so to speak, as Americans. But the Israelis and Chabad specifically is going to get the pudding, and this is basically what bothers me, and I want people to really realize that. And at the end of the day, I realize, well, no, I'm not going to speak for Trump, nor Biden, nor anybody on either side, because I'm on the side of Christ and righteousness and truth, and I'm not making friendships with Talmudic Jews, because Talmudism is a complete opposite to Christ. This is who Christ's enemy is. And this is who put him to death. Yeah. And Jesus himself said, again, I'm repeating myself, but it's so important. If you can get into the spirit of that scripture, they have persecuted me, and they will persecute you also. And keep in mind motto of Mossad or Israel: we wage war by deception. That means that it will sound so good and so nice, but there is some kind of trick and trap going on for the Christians. And one example I will say real quick is bringing back Bible to schools. Every Christian, because we were so angry.
It does sound good.
It sounds great, because first, what did they do? They took Bible out from schools. It's a problem. No, we want Bible back to school. And Trump is the guy. He's going to do that, right? But where is the problem? Where is the trick and trap with that?
What Bible will end up in
Well, now, it might be a Christian Bible that will be modified in New Testament. And problem is, what are they going to teach it with? What interpretations? Do you really give your children or allow your children, just anybody teach the Bible? I mean, how many interpretations are there? Even among Christianity. What if Jehovah's Witnesses of Watchtower organization told you that they're bringing Bible to schools? Would you trust them with their Bible education? So here we are. Let's ask these questions. Who is going to interpret the Bible in school? You know what I mean? So just be careful out there, So that's why I'm very careful.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Especially if, they're going to be rewriting it and taking out all the supposed anti-Semitic things that Jesus had said, even though we know it wasn't anti-Semitic. He was talking about just religious leaders and Sadducees, about hypocrisy of actually of their own practice. But to the average person who doesn't know that, they're going to think it's anti-Semitic, and so they'll never learn what that is. And so, yeah, you're right. Even with the different versions of the Bible that are out, there's one that's like the Gen Z Bible. I don't know if you guys are aware of that one. But it actually kind of like speaks the Bible. It breaks it down to where it's like an Ebonics, like a street language. But the problem is the interpretation is completely taken out, and it's written in paragraph form. So there's no verses or chapters. It's just like in story form, but written in like an Ebonics type of language for teenagers. And it's almost like a Cliff Notes to the Bible. So you're missing majority of the meat to it, people, I've seen people passing it around and things like that, and I'm like, oh, this is not good, because you're missing a lot of stuff. Like, and in the way it's written out, it's not it's really, borderline blasphemous, honestly, the way they've done that. So yeah, you're correct. What version are they going to put in there?
Yeah, are they going to teach Noahide laws?
Right.
So this is where the danger lies, that and then of course Christian dominionism and all of that, which is basically they're gonna bring it dressed up really well, but it will end up in complete trap. And once we are in that system, it's way too late, because as I said, that you're signing a blank piece of paper, they will just add things when you can get out of it, and this is when they will chop the heads off. You will have no choice. Yeah. Can't hear you, brother.
It's still muted. The microphone's not, but for some reason you're.
There we go. All right.
There we go.
That always happens. But I just want to say I thank you both for coming on tonight. I think it was very informative, and we will definitely be.
One more thing, just before
Yes.
we go, the word anti-Semitism, because a lot of people might say, "Oh, they're anti-Semites" or whatever. Keep in mind, anti-Semitism is a trick. It's a trick meant to call you a name, so they silence you, so you can't defend your own faith and your own interpretation, and you can't speak against Talmud. It's to give them the voice and take away your voice.
And that was actually said by an Israeli parliament member in an interview one day. They asked her about anti-Semitism, and she said, "Oh, it's a trick. It's what we use."
Yeah, that's what.
And not only did she say it, but a former Mossad guy also said it. He said, "If we want to get rid of you," he said, "all we do is we label you anti-Semitic, and we spread it through all the media, and then we totally destroy that person."
That's the word that causes horror and terror in your heart and mind if somebody is to call you anti-Semite, isn't it? Well, that's exactly what it's meant to do. That way you don't speak up. That way you can't say Talmud is wrong, or I don't agree with Talmud. Oh, you are anti-Semite. You see how this works? Don't be afraid of this. Really search. I mean, I would say people who hate the Jews, there are people who hate just, if you are a Jew, they hate you because you are a Jew. And that's racism. That's hatred. And I disagree with this. But the word anti-Semite is meant to to stop you from speaking the truth, so you cannot defend Christian faith against Talmudism. So just be careful with that as well, and careful with that word, who you call anti-Semite and so on. But anyway.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's a really good point, and I'm glad that you brought that out this evening. And yeah, there was a lot of different areas discussed this evening. From anti-Semitism, if I can say it right, to the nomadic laws, to the different teachings and things like that. And so, as we always encourage here on Daily Excellence, we always encourage you guys to go out and do your own research on these subjects, and don't take it just at our word, but actually go out and do the research and find out on your own what's really going on in these things. And so they've given out, Steve and Jana have given out both great resources to do. And of course, you can go over to israelinews.com, or is it israelinews.org or .com?
israelinewslive.org.
israelinews.live.org. So you go over to their website, check
israelinewslive.org.
israelinewslive.org. So yeah, go over there, check out the articles that have been written over there. Of course, you can see a lot of different videos that they've done over on their Patreon channel, and then you can support their ministry there, and then over on the YouTube. You guys used to, I don't know if you still have it anymore, but are you still over on Odyssey? Are you guys still doing that over there?
I'm on Odyssey.
Jana's on Odyssey, and we need to start loading videos back over there again. But there are a lot of videos there, yes.
Yeah, so yeah, if you guys just check them out over on Odyssey, all those links and things like that. Of course, we'll have that in the bottom of our descriptions here on the channel. So, but hey, thank you guys so much for being on here tonight. We really appreciate you guys taking the time out and just explaining this, and we will definitely be doing this again. So thank you to both of you. I know it's getting kind of late, so we're gonna get off of here tonight, but we will definitely come back and revisit this again, especially with all these things going on in the next months and a couple of years to come. I think we're going to have a lot to discuss as things continue to manifest in our world around us. So thank you guys so much for coming on here tonight.
Thank you. God bless.
All right, guys. Thank you once again for being here. Please make sure that you like this video here on Patreon and on Rumble, and we thank you for this being here and checking out this exclusive video. Have a good night, or I guess probably for you guys it'll be during the day, but anyway, have a great day, and God bless you. And remember, you may be the only Jesus that someone sees this week, so please keep a smile on your face. Bye, everyone.